Imagine standing in the lobby of a massive, gleaming tech corporate headquarters,
Yeah.
like right in the middle of Silicon Valley.
Right, the absolute heart of the industry.
Exactly. And you look to your left, and there's this huge line, like over 100,000 people walking out the revolving doors, holding cardboard boxes.
The mass exodus we've been seeing.
Yeah. And we are talking brilliant, highly capable people here, engineers, project managers, data analysts from the absolute titans of the industry. Amazon, Meta, Intel, Microsoft, IBM.
It really is staggering when you look at the raw numbers.
It's a complete bloodbath.
Yeah.
But then you look to your right, and there is a much smaller, highly secured VIP elevator bank.
Oh, the VIP elevator, yeah.
Right. And the people stepping into that elevator are being handed starting compensation packages of $400,000, $500,000, even
Yeah.
$600,000 a year.
It's wild. It's almost hard to comprehend.
It is the most jarring, chaotic paradox I think we have ever seen in the modern professional world. I mean, you have mass layoffs happening in the exact same breath as absolute unprecedented wealth generation.
It really is a complete bifurcation of the market. I mean, you are looking at an ecosystem that is simultaneously contracting and exploding at the exact same time.
Contracting and exploding. That's a great way to put it.
And what's really wild is that, well, the people walking out with the cardboard boxes and the people stepping into the VIP elevator, they often have the exact same degrees from the exact same universities.
Wait, really? So it's not a pedigree thing?
Not at all. The separator isn't their baseline intelligence. The separator is, it's their alignment with the new reality of leverage.
Okay, that alignment is exactly what we're unpacking today. We are taking a deep dive into the 2026 tech job market.
And it is a very different market than it was even 2 years ago.
Completely different. And if you are listening to this right now, the mission for this deep dive is very simple, but it's incredibly high stakes.
High stakes is an understatement.
Definitely. We are going to give you a definitive AI-proof roadmap to building a career that thrives in this environment. Because, honestly, simply surviving the next round of cuts, that's no longer a viable career strategy.
Right, surviving just means you're delaying the inevitable.
Exactly. We want to cut through all the social media noise, all the panic, and show you the exact mechanisms to get into that VIP elevator.
Because to understand how to get in that elevator, we really have to establish the core thesis of this entire paradox.
Right, the foundation of all of this.
Exactly. We are not actually facing a lack of jobs in macroeconomic sense. What we are facing is the definitive end of an era.
The end of the easy money.
Yes, the era of zero interest rate policy. The easy money in tech is completely dead. I mean, for a decade, companies hired just for the sake of headcount growth.
Or just to hoard talent, right, like keep them away from competitors.
Exactly, just parking smart people on benches. But that is over. Companies are now laser focused on hyper-efficiency and profitability.
So what does that actually look like for hiring?
It means they do not want generalists who need to be trained up over 6 months. They want highly specialized experts who can walk in on day one, look at an incredibly expensive bleeding-edge problem, and just solve it.
Which means the old career playbook is completely out the window.
Yeah.
So for you listening, we're going to break this down layer by layer.
Layer by layer.
We're going to examine the exact roles that are booming and the ones that are quietly being automated out of existence.
And the certifications, right?
Yes. We'll look at the certifications you actually need to prove your worth and the ones that are a complete waste of your time and money.
Because there are a lot of time wasters out there.
So many. And later, we are going to get into some incredibly unconventional tactics to bypass the AI resume filters. Because those things are actively rejecting like 99% of applicants right now.
They are brutal. Absolutely brutal.
But before we get to the how, we have to fundamentally restructure our understanding of the why.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. The actual baseline structure of how a career is supposed to work and why it's suddenly failing so many smart people.
Think about the traditional career path that was sold to all of us. I mean, for the last 70 years, the formula was practically a guaranteed contract.
Right. You go to school, you memorize this stuff, you get a degree.
Exactly. And you enter the workforce in a functional entry-level job. But we have to look at the mechanics of that educational system.
Because the system itself is the problem.
Inherently. It was built during the industrial age. The entire structure, bells ringing to change classes, sitting in neat rows, rote memorization.
Repeating facts on standardized tests.
Right. It was explicitly designed to prepare people for factories and early corporate offices that simply do not exist anymore.
We were essentially training human beings to act like machines.
Yes.
Like we were grading them on their ability to be perfect, predictable, repetitive processors of information.
Yes, and if we map that onto today's technology, we essentially spent 12 to 15 years training people to act like large language models.
Oh, wow. That is a terrifying comparison.
It is. We taught them to take in a prompt, like a homework assignment or a basic corporate task, process it functionally, and spit out a predictable, standardized output.
But the glaring issue in 2026 is that actual large language models, the AI is running on these massive server farms.
They're infinitely cheaper.
Cheaper, faster, and more perfectly functional than any human being could ever hope to be.
The demographic data backing this up from the source material is just staggering.
Let's talk about the India data, because that blew my mind.
Right. So looking at the global workforce pipeline, the sources highlight that India is projected to supply 2/3 of the world's new workforce by 2030.
2/3, that's massive.
But there is a massive red flag hidden in that projection. The research indicates that 63% of Indian workers will need extensive retraining by 2030 just to remain employable. 63%. That points to a global skill crisis, rather than a pure job shortage.
Exactly. You have millions of capable people entering the workforce, but the floor has literally fallen out from under them.
Because their skills are generic.
Right. If your daily work consists of taking data from column A, reformatting it, and putting it into column B, you are competing directly with a piece of software that costs fractions of a cent per operation.
And that is a competition a human will lose every single time.
Every single time.
But I want to pause here, because we need to be really precise about what AI is actually destroying.
Good point.
The narrative online is usually this apocalyptic, broad brush panic. Like AI is coming for the lawyers, or AI is replacing all coders.
The social media panic is exhausting.
It really is. But the source material points out a crucial nuance. AI isn't killing entire professions.
No, it's not.
It is killing the shallow versions of those professions.
That distinction is everything. Let's look at the financial advisor example from the research to really understand the mechanics of this. Okay, yeah. What is the shallow version of a financial advisor?
It's someone whose entire job is basically looking at a client's risk tolerance questionnaire and then pulling a preset list of mutual funds based on standard market trends.
So they're just acting as a human router for public information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And today, an AI search engine like Perplexity can do that instantly.
Right.
You can feed an AI your portfolio, ask it to read every single quarterly earnings report released that morning, cross-reference it with historical market data, and instantly output a tailored asset allocation strategy.
So the shallow financial advisor is utterly obsolete because their moat was just access to basic information.
But a deep financial advisor
Does a completely different job.
completely different. The deep financial advisor is invaluable because they operate in the realm of the unautomatable.
The messy human stuff.
Right. They are leveraging deep personal networks to get you access to private equity deals or hedge funds or venture capital seed rounds that simply do not exist on the public internet.
Oh, I see.
And they are sitting in a room with a family, navigating the complex, highly emotional friction of inheritance and trust planning.
Managing human behavior when the market crashes.
Exactly. When the client wants to panic sell, AI cannot hold their hand and talk them off a ledge.
That makes total sense. And the same mechanism applies to real estate.
No, absolutely.
Like if your real estate agent is just setting up an automated MLS search and emailing you Zillow links.
Zero value.
Yeah, they provide zero value.
Yeah.
An AI agent can run a script every morning, find houses under a certain budget in a specific school district, cross-reference it with local crime statistics, send you a push notification, and even draft the initial inquiry email to the seller.
But the deep real estate agent, they are knocking on doors to find off-market deals before they ever hit the internet.
Right.
They're negotiating messy contingencies with emotional sellers. They're leveraging a deep network of contractors to evaluate a foundation issue on the spot.
Their value isn't in finding the data.
No, their value is in navigating the friction of the real world.
Let's bring this back to tech, because the exact same dynamic is playing out for developers and engineers right now.
Oh, heavily.
A junior coder who just takes a ticket from Jira, writes a boilerplate React component, and pushes it to GitHub. That is the shallow version of the profession.
An AI coding assistant can write that boilerplate in 2 seconds.
Exactly. But an engineer who understands the broader business context, who pushes back on a flawed product requirement, who negotiates with a design team, and who architects a scalable solution.
That's the deep version.
But here's where I really want to challenge this model. Because if that baseline shallow work is what AI is eating, I mean, it sounds like the first step of the career ladder has literally been sawed off.
It really does feel that way for a lot of people.
Right. If an entry-level DevOps role is disappearing because AI is doing the basic scripting, and companies suddenly want 5 years of experience for an entry-level job,
Which we see all the time now.
how does a beginner even get into the building?
That is the most profound anxiety in the market right now, and honestly, it's a completely valid fear. It's terrifying. The answer lies in understanding what we can call the new contract at work.
A new contract.
AI is taking the boring, repeatable tasks. It's writing the routine update emails, it's cleaning the messy database entries, it's generating the boilerplate code.
Right.
Because of that, the baseline expectation for human output has been elevated. You are no longer hired to do the repeatable tasks.
So what are you hired to do?
You are hired to manage the AI system that does the repeatable task and to solve the higher value, ambiguous problems that the system cannot handle.
So it's not that entry level is gone. It's that the definition of what constitutes entry level has been massively upgraded.
Massively. You are expected to operate like a junior manager of AI agents from day one.
Wow.
Precisely. If you are inside a company right now, your unspoken mandate is to figure out how to do your current job with AI.
Before they hire someone else who already knows how.
Exactly. You have to elevate yourself up the value chain. If you refuse to elevate, if you insist on clinging to those functional, repetitive tasks because they feel safe and familiar,
You're going to get replaced.
you will eventually be moved out. The escalator is broken. You have to climb the stairs yourself now.
The broken escalator. That perfectly sets up our next major question. Because if the baseline has shifted this drastically, we need to look at the specific technical roles in the 2026 market.
Yes, let's get into the specifics.
We need a tier list. Because if I'm dedicating hundreds of hours to learning a new skill, I need to know exactly what is booming and what is quietly fragmenting into oblivion.
You have to allocate your learning time strategically.
Exactly. So let's start with the danger zone, the F tier and D tier roles, the jobs that are actively being automated away.
Okay, we have to look at cloud administrators and traditional cloud operations roles.
Why are those in the danger zone?
These are jobs that are largely operational and maintenance focused. Managing user access, monitoring server loads, handling database backups.
Watching dashboards to make sure services stay online.
Exactly. The problem here is that the major cloud providers, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, are aggressively releasing native tools that automate these exact daily tasks.
Because it's purely pattern-based work.
Inherently. The job is essentially monitor the CPU metric, and if it hits 80%, respond to this alert by following this specific written playbook to spin up another server.
And that is the exact type of algorithmic logic that AI excels at.
Completely. The billions of dollars being poured into cloud infrastructure development aren't creating more admin roles. They are funding the automation that replaces those admins.
Wow. Okay, and then there's pure DevOps, which our sources put squarely in the D tier.
Yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of people to hear.
I know. Stating that pure DevOps is dying is going to make a lot of traditional tech folks incredibly defensive.
It's a highly controversial take, but the underlying data and market shifts absolutely support it.
Break that down for me.
Think about what DevOps actually is at its core. It's heavily based on scripting, writing code to automate the deployment of other code.
Right.
It's writing YAML files and bash scripts to move software from a developer's laptop to a live server. And what does AI do exceptionally well?
Scripting and configuration generation.
Exactly. AWS has literally released a 247 DevOps AI agent capable of handling routine deployment pipelines.
That's crazy.
But the deeper mechanism here isn't just that AI is taking the scripts. It's that the role of pure DevOps is fragmenting.
It's fragmenting how?
It is dissolving into two distinct higher-level disciplines: site reliability engineering, or SRE, and platform engineering.
Let's break those down, because throwing around terms like SRE and platform engineering without explaining them is how people get lost in the jargon.
Fair enough.
What is the mechanical difference?
Let's look at platform engineering first. Instead of a DevOps engineer manually setting up a server every time a developer wants to launch a new app, a platform engineer builds an internal self-service portal. They build what's called the golden path. So now a developer just logs into an internal company portal, clicks a few buttons, and the platform automatically provisions the infrastructure, sets up the security policies, and deploys the code.
So they are building the vending machine rather than manually handing out the snacks.
That's a great way to conceptualize it. The platform engineer treats the company's internal developers as their customers.
And on the other side?
On the other side, you have Site Reliability Engineering, SRE. This was pioneered by Google. And SRE treats operations as if it's a software engineering problem.
How so?
They are deeply involved in the code, managing things like error budgets, basically determining mathematically how much downtime is acceptable before they halt new feature releases to focus entirely on fixing bugs.
So if you are a beginner trying to break in, pure DevOps is a closed door.
Right.
Because the entry-level scripting work is automated, and the senior work has evolved into these highly complex architectural disciplines like SRE and platform engineering.
That is exactly the dynamic.
That makes total sense. The shallow layer of DevOps
Yeah.
is gone. So let's pivot to the gold mines,
The good stuff.
the S tier and A tier roles. The specific jobs that are commanding those insane VIP elevator salaries we talked about.
Cloud security engineers are absolutely S tier right now.
Security.
Interesting.
It's a fascinating, historically overlooked area with a massive supply and demand imbalance. Think about the current market frenzy.
Everyone is rushing to build AI products.
Every company on Earth,
Mhm.
they are integrating AI into their existing services, and they are moving at breakneck speed.
And historically, whenever the tech industry moves fast, they leave glaring vulnerabilities everywhere,
The classic Silicon Valley ethos, move fast and break things.
which is great for a social media app, but terrifying when you're dealing with enterprise data.
And the consequences are becoming financially existential. Last year alone, 61% of companies reported being breached,
61%.
with an average cost of $5 million per breach.
Oh my God. Because of this frantic rush to the cloud and AI, cloud security has become the #1 most in-demand skill globally.
That makes sense.
Yet, paradoxically, it is also the area where current cybersecurity professionals feel the least prepared, because cloud environments are infinitely more complex and dynamic than old-school on-premise server rooms.
So that massive knowledge gap is where the premium compensation lies.
Exactly. Starting salaries for competent cloud security engineers are easily clearing $200,000 and pushing well past $300,000 for top-tier talent.
And then you have the AI and machine learning engineers.
The absolute peak of the mountain.
Right, this is the peak of compensation right now. In the U.S., top-tier AI and ML engineers, the ones who truly understand the underlying math and architecture, are hitting $400,000 to $600,000.
And in India, it's crossing 1 crore.
But again, we have to apply our shallow versus deep framework here,
Yes.
because it's not just about knowing how to call an API from OpenAI or knowing how to train a basic model on a clean data set.
No, the deep value is in AI cloud engineering. Knowing how to architect the actual massive cloud infrastructure that powers those AI workloads.
Let's pause and explain the mechanics of that, because AI workloads sounds very abstract. What are these engineers actually doing that is worth $500,000?
Okay, think about the difference between training an AI model and running inference.
Training versus reference.
Right. Training is like sending the AI to the library to read every book ever written. It requires massive, specialized clusters of GPUs running for weeks or months.
Which costs a fortune.
Tens of millions of dollars in compute power. If a network switch fails or a data pipeline bottlenecks during training, you are burning hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour.
Wow.
Then you have inference, which is what happens when a user actually asks the AI a question. Millions of users hitting that endpoint simultaneously requires an entirely different type of cloud architecture to ensure low latency and cost efficiency.
The engineers who can design those specific, highly complex environments are writing their own tickets.
Writing their own ticket.
And the source material highlights a massive foundational architectural shift happening right now to support this. Companies that want to be truly AI-enabled are actively migrating their entire tech stacks.
It's a massive migration.
They are moving away from traditional siloed AWS or Azure deployments and migrating heavily into platforms like GitLab and GitHub. Let's dig into why that is happening.
It comes down to context and workflow. Companies want to integrate AI coding assistants like GitHub Copilot directly into their developers' daily workflows.
Right.
If your entire code base, your testing pipelines, and your deployment histories are centralized on a platform like GitHub, the AI has infinite context.
You can see everything.
It can read your entire repository, understand your company's specific coding standards, and suggest highly relevant code.
But if your infrastructure is scattered,
If it's scattered across a dozen disconnected AWS services, the AI is blind. It doesn't have the context to be helpful.
but Migrating an enterprise company from one massive infrastructure setup to another without breaking the live product. I mean, that sounds like performing open-heart surgery while the patient is running a marathon.
Which is exactly why that migration requires highly specialized, deeply experienced professionals. It requires solutions architects.
Ah, solutions architects.
That is another firm A-tier role. Notice that a solutions architect isn't necessarily the person writing the raw code. They are defining the overarching strategy,
So they are analyzing massive, messy legacy systems.
designing the intricate steps of the migration, foreseeing potential catastrophic failures, and crucially translating those deeply technical decisions into business outcomes for the executive board.
I want to pull a thread that connects all of this.
Go for it.
If we look at the bigger picture, what is the underlying DNA shared by cloud security, AI architecture, and solutions architecture? Why do these specific roles survive and thrive while the cloud admin dies?
It boils down to three irreplaceable human elements: context, judgment, and architecture.
Context, judgment, architecture.
An AI can write a brilliant script. It can parse a massive log file in milliseconds to find a bug. But an AI cannot sit in a conference room, understand the political dynamics between the marketing team and the engineering team, and design a multi-cloud migration strategy that satisfies both.
It cannot negotiate a security protocol with a nervous executive who is balancing data risk against a strict product launch deadline.
Exactly. The highest compensation in the market will always flow to the roles that manage extreme complexity, balance competing human incentives, and navigate the unknown.
Speaking of architecture and navigating the unknown, there is one specific technology in our sources that perfectly illustrates the divide between the noise you hear on social media and the actual undeniable reality of enterprise market demand.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. If you scroll through tech forums, Reddit, or LinkedIn right now, you will see a vocal contingent of developers screaming that this next technology is a massive mistake.
They hate it.
They post memes saying it requires a 12-gigabyte stack just to run a simple 200-megabyte web app. They claim it's an over-engineered fad, it's dying, and only massive hyperscalers like Google should ever touch it.
They are talking about Kubernetes.
Kubernetes.
And the negative narrative around it is a masterclass in how bad information online can completely derail a junior engineer's career trajectory.
It really is. Let's debunk this right now, because the gap between perception and reality here is massive. The persistent myth is that Kubernetes is this bloated, impossibly complex monster that will bankrupt a small company in server costs.
But the reality...
Let's look at the actual mechanics. There are lightweight distributions like K3s that have a memory footprint of about 300 megabytes, not 12 gigabytes.
It can literally run on a Raspberry Pi.
Exactly. But more importantly, let's look at who is actually relying on it. 95% of the Fortune 500 use Azure Kubernetes service.
95%?
60% of all major enterprises globally have adopted it into their core infrastructure.
We need to explain why it became so dominant, why it was created in the first place.
Let's do a quick history lesson.
Before Kubernetes, companies built monolithic applications. Everything, the user login, the database connection, the shopping cart, was tangled up in one massive block of code.
So if you wanted to update the shopping cart, you had to take down the entire website.
Exactly. To fix this, the industry moved to microservices. They chopped the app into dozens of tiny independent pieces and put each piece in a standardized shipping container called a Docker container.
Which solved the monolithic problem, but created a new nightmare.
A huge nightmare. Suddenly, instead of managing one big app, an operations team had to manage thousands of these little containers floating around on different servers.
Right.
If a server crashed in the middle of the night, someone had to wake up and manually restart the containers on a new server. It was absolute chaos.
And to Kubernetes.
Kubernetes was created to be the orchestrator. It is the air traffic controller for all those containers.
So you tell Kubernetes, I always want 3 copies of the shopping cart container running.
And if a server explodes, Kubernetes instantly notices, finds a healthy server, and spins up a new shopping cart container before a human even gets the pager alert.
And if you look at the current AI boom, the infrastructure powering it is entirely reliant on Kubernetes.
Entirely.
ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, they all run on massive Kubernetes clusters. It has essentially become the standard operating system of the cloud. It is the platform that developers use to build other platforms.
So when people on social media confidently proclaim that nobody needs Kubernetes, they are actively blinding themselves to where the entire enterprise industry has already established its foundation.
The financial data completely obliterates the social media narrative. There are currently over 121,000 open Kubernetes jobs worldwide.
That's a massive number of open roles.
The average salary for these roles is $171,000. That is essentially a $50,000 premium over a standard, non-specialized software engineering role.
And the growth rate is what really stands out to me.
Right.
In a year where standard IT salaries grew by a sluggish 1.2%, Kubernetes-specific salaries were growing at 15 to 19% year over year.
19%.
That kind of wage inflation only happens when companies have critical workloads, massive budgets, and are completely desperate because they cannot find enough people who actually understand the mechanics of the technology.
And it's worth noting that 67% of these Kubernetes roles are remote.
So you are commanding a massive salary premium and you have geographic freedom.
But I want to extrapolate on where this technology is going next, because this is where the market is headed in 2026.
Edge computing.
Yes. We intuitively think of Kubernetes as this massive centralized technology living in giant Amazon server farms in Virginia. But it's actually moving out to the literal edge of the physical world.
This was one of the most fascinating insights from the research. Let's talk about the Orchard example, because it perfectly illustrates why compute power has to leave the centralized cloud.
Okay, set the scene for me.
The initial wave of AI hype was entirely centralized. You type a prompt into ChatGPT, that text goes over the internet to a massive data center, the model processes it, and it sends text back.
Right.
But the next wave of real-world AI applications requires immediate localized interaction with physical environments.
The edge.
Imagine a massive commercial agricultural operation, an apple orchard. They are mounting high-definition cameras on their tractors. As the tractor drives down the rows at 15 miles an hour, the cameras are using advanced computer vision AI to scan the fruit trees in real time.
That's incredible.
They are analyzing the density of the buds, assessing the health of the leaves, and mapping out exactly where the attached sprayers should release salt water to thin the blossoms and optimize the next harvest.
Think about the mechanics of that data flow. You cannot take massive streams of 4K video, beam it via a spotty rural cellular connection up to an AWS server in Ohio, wait for an AI model to process the video, and send the mechanical command back down to the tractor sprayer.
The latency would be too high. The tractor would have already driven past the tree.
And the network connection might drop entirely.
Exactly. The processing has to happen instantly, locally on the machine itself. The AI model is running on a ruggedized computer bolted directly to the John Deere tractor.
Wow.
That localized processing is edge computing. And how do you manage, update, and deploy new AI models to a fleet of 500 tractors spread across a massive farm?
You run a lightweight Kubernetes cluster on each tractor.
Exactly. Or consider supermarkets. They are using AI to analyze local security feeds in real time to track foot traffic patterns and optimize store layouts.
But for severe data privacy reasons and for latency, they cannot send live video of their customers to a public cloud.
Right. That processing happens on a server in the back room of the grocery store. That is edge computing. And the market desperately needs engineers who know how to build, deploy, and securely maintain all those localized distributed Kubernetes clusters.
So the engineers who ignored the cynical memes and actually put in the work to learn the skill are the ones inheriting this market. And I want to share a story from the sources that really grounds this, because it proves this isn't just for people with Stanford computer science degrees.
The nurse story.
Yes, there was a registered nurse featured in the data. He was making barely $50,000 a year, working a miserable, physically exhausting, soul-crushing job. No tech background, no boot camp pedigree, no uncle who worked at Google.
Starting from absolute scratch.
But he realized the potential of this market. He started learning Kubernetes in his evenings and weekends. He pushed through the immense initial friction and confusion, studied the official documentation, and earned his certification.
And what happened?
Within 1 year, he doubled his salary by landing a role as a Kubernetes consultant.
That's amazing.
Today, he is a senior DevOps engineer, pulling in multiple six figures, working completely remotely on his own terms.
That narrative proves a vital point about the 2026 market. The barrier to entry is no longer a specific pedigree or a 4-year degree. The barrier to entry is simply a high tolerance for enduring the friction of learning something genuinely complex.
The people shouting that a technology is too hard or overkill are usually the ones who haven't possessed the discipline to put in the lonely hours required to master it.
Well said.
So mastering something complex like Kubernetes gives you a massive technical moat. It makes you highly valuable and very painful for a company to replace.
But what if we look at industry moats?
Exactly what I was thinking.
Mm.
Because right now, the global economy feels incredibly volatile, inflation is a persistent concern, and everyone is terrified of random Tuesday morning layoff emails.
It's stressful.
Where do you go when you want absolute bulletproof stability?
If you prioritize stability above all else, you have to actively avoid the sexy startups.
Which is so counterintuitive to tech culture. I mean, everyone wants to work at the flashy, disruptive AI startup in San Francisco with the ping pong tables, the nap pods, and the unlimited organic cold brew on tap.
The culture is appealing, but the financial realities are brutal. In a high interest rate environment or a potential economic downturn, those startups are the most vulnerable entities on the board.
Because they're not actually profitable.
Right. Their entire business models often rely on continuous injections of venture capital funding just to make payroll. When interest rates stay high or venture capitalists get spooked, that funding dries up overnight.
And then the layoffs start.
If you want a high compensation package that actually cashes out, combined with deep stability in 2026, the smartest strategic move is to embrace what we call boring tech.
Boring tech. We're talking about legacy pillars. Finance, healthcare, and most importantly right now, GovTech, government technology.
GovTech is arguably the safest harbor in the entire global tech industry right now. Think about the mechanics of government spending.
Okay.
These federal agencies and the massive prime contractors that serve them, companies like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or even the defense divisions of Microsoft and Amazon, they are not subject to the same quarterly profit panics that drive mass layoffs in consumer tech.
Because their budgets are allocated years in advance by Congress.
Exactly. Their missions are long-term structural imperatives.
And within GovTech, there is an ultimate moat. The one specific asset that makes you practically untouchable in the labor market.
A security clearance.
A security clearance.
Whether it's secret, top secret, or SCI, it is the single most valuable non-technical asset you can acquire if you want a guaranteed career.
Why is it so powerful?
It provides a massive baseline salary, it grants you near immunity to corporate layoffs, and it gives you access to fascinating, highly classified projects that the general public will not hear about for a decade.
That's a huge perk.
Furthermore, look at the business side. When the Department of Defense awards a software contract to a tech company, that is often a 5 to 10-year locked-in agreement. That is guaranteed revenue, which means guaranteed job security for the cleared engineers working on it.
And what's interesting is that you no longer have to work for a traditional, slow-moving defense contractor to leverage a clearance. Big tech is aggressively pursuing these massive government contracts.
Oh, absolutely.
The sources mentioned the U.S. Tech Force, which was recently launched by the Office of Personnel Management in direct partnership with companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI.
Right.
The strategic goal is to make America the undisputed global leader in applied AI for national security. They are pouring billions of dollars into this initiative.
Which is a huge opportunity because it means you can work for an agile, modern tech company or a cutting-edge defense startup like Anduril or Shield AI, and they will actively sponsor your clearance process.
And that sponsorship is huge.
It is. The vetting process takes time. They go through your background, your finances, your foreign context. But once you have that clearance adjudicated, your value to any company operating in the government space becomes astronomical.
Because getting a new employee cleared from scratch takes months and costs the company significant money.
So they will pay a massive premium to poach someone who already holds an active clearance.
So we're talking a lot about architecture, infrastructure, and coding. But I want to advocate for a different listener right now.
Sure. What do you have in mind?
Let's say someone's listening to this and they understand the market is shifting. They understand that cloud security and GovTech are huge, but their brain is just fundamentally wired differently.
Okay.
They're analytical, but they absolutely do not want to spend the next 20 years staring at a command line interface writing Python scripts. Are they just locked out of this wealth generation? Is there a path to these VIP salaries without being a hardcore developer?
Absolutely. And it brings us right back to that critical intersection of security and executive business strategy. The prime role here is governance, risk, and compliance, commonly known as GRC.
I find GRC fascinating because on the surface, it sounds incredibly dry, literally, compliance, but the financial upside and the actual stakes of the job are massive.
It sounds dry because it deals heavily with policy and frameworks, but the stakes are quite literally existential for modern businesses.
How so?
In a GRC role, your day-to-day is not configuring network firewalls or writing penetration testing scripts in Kali Linux. Your job is managing massive systemic business risk.
Give me an example of the mechanics.
You might be using frameworks like NIST to audit a company's entire infrastructure, or in 2026, you are likely auditing massive AI systems for compliance with new aggressive global regulations like the EU AI Act.
Oh, that's huge right now.
You are looking at data sovereignty, copyright infringement risks within training data, and algorithmic bias.
So you are the translator. You are taking highly technical cyber threats and translating them into financial risk and business impact for a board of directors who don't know how a server works.
Exactly. And the compensation reflects the stakes. Freshers entering GRC can start around 8 to 12 lakhs per annum in the Indian market, but as you move into senior risk management roles, that scales aggressively to 25 to 40 LPA.
And because you are forced to understand both the deepest technical risks and the overarching business strategy, GRC professionals possess a direct, natural pathway into executive leadership.
This is the pipeline to becoming a Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO.
This principle isn't just isolated to tech. The source has made some brilliant comparisons to other high-stakes professions to explain why these specific roles pay so well. They looked at management consulting, investment banking, commercial aviation, and medical specialists.
The parallel explains the entire economic theory of compensation. Why does a senior investment banker make millions of dollars a year?
It's not because they work 10 times harder than a bricklayer.
No, it's because they are structuring mergers and acquisitions worth hundreds of millions of dollars, where a single mathematical mistake or brilliant strategic insight has catastrophic or massive financial consequences.
Why does a neurosurgeon or a commercial airline pilot make top-tier salaries?
Because they operate in environments with zero margin for error. The cost of failure is absolute.
They manage extreme complexity, and they absorb extreme risk on behalf of the organization or the patient.
Precisely. The highest compensation in any capitalist system always flows to those who manage specialized knowledge and high-stakes risk.
So in the tech sector, whether you are a solutions architect designing a cloud migration that keeps a Fortune 500 company's payment gateway online, or a GRC expert auditing an AI system to ensure the company isn't hit with $1 billion privacy fine, you are managing that exact same profile of extreme complexity and risk.
You are the safety net.
Okay, so we've mapped the territory. We know the high-value roles, cloud security, AI architecture, Kubernetes specialists, GRC. We know the stable industries, GovTech, and finance.
We have the what and the where.
But now we hit the practical, logistical hurdle. How do you actually prove to a skeptical, overwhelmed hiring manager that you possess these skills? Because the old mechanisms of proving competence, like a standard college degree or a basic multiple-choice certificate, are completely losing their weight.
The entire certification landscape has been fundamentally upended and fractured by the rise of AI.
Let's get into the 2026 certification tier list. Prove it or lose it. Because I see people on LinkedIn every day spending thousands of dollars and months of their lives studying for pieces of paper that our sources indicate are essentially worthless in the current market.
The core mechanical issue is that traditional multiple-choice exams have lost all credibility with hiring managers.
Why is that?
Think about how these tests work. It's a question with 4 possible answers. Historically, people would use brain dumps websites where previous test takers would illegally post the exact questions and answers. People would just memorize the answers without understanding the concepts.
And now with AI, it's even worse.
With AI, you can feed an entire textbook into a model and have it generate perfect study guides, or even use AI to actively cheat on remote proctored exams. Employers are fully aware of this.
They know the game.
They no longer care if you memorize enough flashcards to pass a 90-minute theoretical test. They demand verifiable, sandbox-tested, hands-on skills.
So let's name names. Let's look at the F tier, the certifications you should actively avoid if your goal is to stand out.
At the bottom of the list, we have the CompTIA Plus A. This is the classic foundational IT certification.
What's wrong with it?
The problem is that it's expensive, around $500 for the 2 required exams, and it essentially tests basic hardware and operating system knowledge. 10 or 15 years ago, it might have reliably gotten your foot in the door for a basic help desk role.
But today,
Today, the ROI is terrible because those basic Tier 1 support roles are heavily automated by AI chatbots.
then there's the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker, which, from a marketing perspective, sounds incredibly cool. Everyone wants to be a certified hacker.
The marketing is brilliant, but the industry reality is bleak. It costs nearly $1,000, and the fatal flaw is that it is almost entirely theoretical.
It's just multiple choice.
It's a multiple-choice test about hacking. There is no practical sandbox component where you actually have to break into a system. Therefore, hiring managers looking for actual penetration testers view it as a paper certification.
It proves, the vocabulary of hacking, but it does not prove you can actually execute an exploit.
Exactly.
The sources also heavily flagged some of the massive online courses, specifically the Google Cyber Certificate on Coursera and the Microsoft Azure Fundamentals, the AZ-900.
The Google certificate is a fantastic introductory learning resource, but it is not recognized by enterprise employers as a formal, rigorous certification. It is a beginner course.
And the Azure one.
The AZ-900 is so surface level that you can study for it over a weekend and pass it on Monday. Neither of these credentials provide the deep, deployable cloud or security skills that the modern market demands.
So if I'm building my resume strategically, I'm skipping all of those. I'm not collecting low-tier certs like trading cards just to pad out the bottom of my LinkedIn profile.
Waste of time and money.
Let's talk about the S tier.
Yeah.
The certifications that actually change the trajectory of a career.
The defining characteristic of an S-tier certification is that it is brutally practical. Let's contrast the theoretical CEH with the S-tier equivalent. The OSCP, the Offensive Security Certified Professional.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
This is the undisputed gold standard for penetration testing. Why? Because it is entirely hands-on.
Walk me through the mechanics of that exam because it sounds intense.
It's essentially a 24-hour marathon. You are given VPN access to a simulated, secure corporate network, a sandbox environment. Your objective is to actively hack into multiple machines, exploit vulnerabilities, and capture flags to prove you gained administrative control.
24 hours of straight hacking.
And that's only half the battle. After the 24 hours of hacking, you have another 24 hours to write a comprehensive professional penetration test report detailing exactly how you compromise the systems and how the company should patch them.
Wow.
When a hiring manager sees an OSCP on a resume, they know without a shadow of a doubt that you have practical, battle-tested skills and immense endurance.
And that suffering pays off. An OSCP can command starting salaries of $150,000 to $200,000 plus. The exam and lab time cost about $1,600, but the return on investment is undeniable. What about the cloud and architecture space?
SANS Institute is the absolute gold standard there. Specifically, the SANS GCAT, the GI Cloud Security Architect and Design Certification.
What does that prove?
It proves you can deeply integrate complex cloud infrastructure with rigorous security architectures. Now, SANS certifications are notoriously expensive, often ranging from $6,000 to $8,000 for the training and exam, which means they're usually paid for by a corporate employer.
But if you have one.
Your resume immediately goes to the top of the pile.
We also have to mention the CCAP, the Certified Kubernetes Application Developer. Since we just spent 10 minutes establishing how foundational Kubernetes is to the entire AI infrastructure, having a hands-on, terminal-based certification directly from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is a massive signal of competence to employers.
Absolutely. And for those pursuing that highly lucrative GRC and management track we discussed, the CISSP remains the gatekeeper.
The Certified Information Systems Security Professional.
Yes. It technically requires 5 years of verifiable industry experience to hold the full title, but it is the mandatory credential for CISO and senior director level roles, easily unlocking compensation packages well over $200,000.
But the landscape isn't static. It's actively shifting toward AI integration. What are the emerging certifications that signal to an employer that you are surfing the wave of the future rather than drowning in legacy tech?
We are seeing a massive, rapid deployment of AI-specific certifications from the major players. NVIDIA's new suite of certifications covering AI infrastructure, data science, and deep learning are currently the king of the hill.
Because NVIDIA owns the hardware space.
Exactly. Microsoft has recognized the security gap we talked about and released the Azure AI Security Engineer certification, which explicitly proves you know how to secure AI workloads in the cloud.
That sounds incredibly relevant.
CompTIA is trying to modernize by launching the SEC AI, focusing purely on AI-related security threats. And for the non-technical policy side, the IAPP has launched the the AI Governance Professional.
So that fits into the GRC track.
Perfectly positioned for GRC, proving you understand how to navigate the complex legal and ethical frameworks of deploying AI.
The overarching strategy here is intense focus. Do not dilute your resume by taking 5 F-tier exams just to look busy. Pick one S-tier or highly specialized A-tier certification, ideally convince your current employer to fund it, and master the practical, hands-on application of that skill.
That is the winning formula.
But here's the brutal reality. Even with the S-tier cert, even if you pick the perfect GovTech niche, we still have to get you in front of a human being to get hired. And that brings us to the absolute most frustrating, demoralizing part of the 2026 job market.
The hiring filters and the applicant tracking systems, the ATS.
It is an absolute nightmare out there for job seekers. I mean, you have the perfect niche, you have the clearance, you cast the CCAID, you go to LinkedIn or a company job portal, you see a remote cloud security role that was posted 45 minutes ago, and it already has 1,500 applicants.
It's absurd.
Applying via these portals feels like throwing your resume into a void. I want to know the mechanics of why it's so broken.
It feels like a black hole because it mathematically is one. We have to understand the volume problem HR departments are facing. Because of AI, applying for a job costs zero effort.
Right.
Many of those 1,500 applicants are literal bots running scripts to apply to every job on the internet. Thousands of them are what recruiters call AI slop resumes.
AI slop. I love that term.
It's candidates who use ChatGPT to generate massive keyword-stuffed resumes that look perfect but lack any real substance. Some of the applications are even from threat actors trying to infiltrate corporate networks by embedding malware in PDF resumes.
So recruiters are just drowning in garbage.
Recruiters are completely overwhelmed with garbage data. Therefore, they rely on incredibly aggressive, automated AI filters to delete 99% of the applications before a human ever looks at the dashboard.
And those filters are often broken and arbitrarily delete highly qualified candidates.
Exactly.
So how do you beat a broken machine? We need what the sources call the outliers playbook. It starts with a fundamental shift in how you build a portfolio. Because right now, most people are building portfolios that actively hurt them.
Yes, the standard advice is dead. The old method was, follow YouTube tutorial, build a generic customer service chatbot or a script that predicts who survives the Titanic dataset.
Put it on your GitHub and expect recruiters to be amazed.
In 2026, nobody cares. An AI can build that generic chatbot in 3 seconds. Following instructions is no longer a differentiator.
I can build things is the baseline. It's not the selling point. So how do you prove value?
You shift from technical execution to business value. The tactic is to find a real business owner, a friend who owns a landscaping company, a former colleague at a logistics firm, and ask them one simple question.
What's the question?
What is the most annoying, repetitive, soul-crushing part of your administrative week? And then you build a targeted AI automation or software script to fix that specific, localized problem.
Think about the psychological difference when a hiring manager reads that resume. Instead of a sterile bullet point that says, built a chatbot using Python and the OpenAI API.
You write, designed an automated AI workflow that reduced manual invoicing data entry by 6 hours a week for a local landscaping company, reducing their accounting errors by 40%.
One shows you can follow a tutorial. The other proves you understand how to generate business impact.
But as you pointed out, if the ATS filter is still blocking your resume because it lacks the exact corporate keywords, nobody ever sees that brilliant portfolio.
Which necessitates the second tactic, uncomfortable networking.
I know that phrase makes engineers want to crawl under a desk. We generally hate networking.
Humans naturally avoid rejection and the awkwardness of asking for favors, but we have to look at the statistical reality. 60 to 70% of high-paying tech jobs are filled via internal referrals.
A warm introduction is the ultimate, unpatchable bypass to the AI resume filter. It relies on the one signal that an AI cannot fake.
A trusted human vouching for the competence of another human.
But I see people completely botch this every day. They send a blind LinkedIn connection request to a senior engineering manager they've never met, and the first message is just a link to their resume and like, please hire me, I need a job.
Oh, that's terrible. It's incredibly off-putting.
It's purely transactional, and it rarely works. The proper mechanical playbook is to leverage second-order connections. You use LinkedIn to find someone who works at your target company who is connected to someone you already know from college or a past last job.
You ask your mutual contact for a warm introduction.
And when you finally get on a 15-minute Zoom call with that engineer, you do not ask for a referral immediately.
Right, you lead with genuine curiosity. You ask for advice. What is your team actively working on right now? What does your actual deployment stack look like? What is the biggest technical headache you're dealing with this quarter? You talk shop.
And then, at the very end of a good conversation, you ask if they would be open to referring you for the open role. Here is the secret mechanism behind why this works.
Financial incentives.
Yes. Many tech companies offer substantial financial referral bonuses, sometimes thousands of dollars, if a referred candidate is hired. That engineer is financially incentivized to say yes to someone who seems competent.
Now, your resume completely bypasses the digital black hole and lands directly on the hiring manager's desk with a stamp of approval.
That gets you in the door. But let's talk about how you build the deep expertise to actually pass the technical interview. The sources outlined a strategy for learning that I thought was brilliant. Going deep into the unknown.
Most people stay in the shallow end of the learning pool because it is incredibly comfortable. There's always a highly polished $15 Udemy course or a slick YouTube video to hold your hand step by step through the basics of React or AWS.
But to be an outlier, you have to force yourself into environments where the hand-holding completely stops.
This is the release note strategy. I want everyone listening to internalize this.
Pick a specific technology you already use. Let's say it's a specific AWS database service. Do not read a beginner's guide. Go to the actual developer portal and read the raw, highly technical release notes for the absolute latest version.
Find a brand new feature or API endpoint that was released 3 days ago.
Which means no one has had time to make a tutorial for it yet. Force yourself to read the dense, confusing documentation. Experiment with it. Break it. Figure out how it actually works through trial and error.
And then this is where the compounding returns kick in. You create the content about it. You write the definitive technical blog post, or you record a screen share video explaining exactly how this new feature works and what business problems it solves.
You become the subject matter expert that other senior engineers are searching for when they encounter the new feature.
It serves two purposes. First, it forces you to achieve true, deep understanding, because you cannot teach what you do not deeply comprehend. Second, it creates a digital beacon.
It attracts recruiters and hiring managers who are desperately searching for specialists in that exact bleeding-edge technology.
Which flows perfectly into the final, most aggressive tactic in the Outlier playbook, creating your own experience. This is the antidote for everyone caught in the classic paradox. I can't get a job without production experience, but I can't get production experience without a job.
The internet has completely removed the gatekeepers. It has never been easier or cheaper to manufacture your own legitimate commercial experience. You do not need a corporation's permission to act as an engineer.
Walk me through the literal mechanics of this. Let's say I'm sitting at home, I have a laptop, an internet connection, and 0 job offers. What is the step-by-step process?
You spend 1 hour online, and you form a limited liability company, an LLC. In many states, this costs less than $100. You apply for a free employer identification number from the IRS. You use that to open a basic business bank account, and you connect it to a Stripe account for payment processing.
So you are now a legally recognized operating business entity.
Next, you use your coding skills, heavily augmented and accelerated by AI coding assistants, to build a small software-as-service product or a niche tool that solves a hyper-specific problem.
Wait. Setting up an LLC and dealing with business bank accounts, I can hear people pushing back on this. That sounds like a massive administrative distraction from actually learning to code. Aren't there complex tax implications? Is the ROI really worth the bureaucratic headache?
It is absolutely worth the headache, and tools like Stripe Atlas or local Secretary of State websites make it incredibly streamlined. The friction is the point.
The friction is the point.
The goal here is not to build a billion-dollar unicorn startup that goes public. The goal is to get one single paying customer, to generate exactly $1 in revenue from a stranger on the internet who finds your tool useful.
Because the moment someone hands you their credit card details in exchange for your software, you have crossed a massive psychological and professional threshold.
Put yourself in the shoes of a hiring manager. You are interviewing 2 candidates for a mid-level engineering role. Candidate 1 sits down and says, "Here is a link to my GitHub. I made a to-do list app and a weather dashboard following a bootcamp curriculum."
And candidate 2?
Candidate 2 sits down and says, "I am the technical founder of an LLC. I built a predictive analytics tool for local veterinary clinics. It currently has 12 active users and generates $200 a month in recurring revenue. I personally architected the cloud deployment, I managed database migrations, and I integrated the secure payment processing.
It is not even a competition. Who are you going to trust with your company's production environment? The person who safely followed a tutorial in a vacuum, or the person who took a product from absolute zero to live production, dealt with real users, and convinced people to part with their money?
You walk into that interview carrying the gravitas of a founder, not the desperation of an applicant.
Yeah.
The administrative inconvenience of setting up the LLC is exactly what creates the competitive advantage because 99% of candidates will not do it.
It's brilliant because it completely short-circuits the experience paradox.
Oh, and speaking of the psychology of applying, there was a darkly funny anecdote from the recruiter interviews in our source material that perfectly captures the weirdness of 2026.
Oh, about the resumes.
Because AI can generate these perfectly polished, grammatically flawless resumes, recruiters are actually becoming highly suspicious of perfection.
It's a fascinating behavioral shift. Recruiters are actively looking for subtle layers of proof that the candidate is actually a messy, breathing human being rather than a bot mass applying to 10,000 jobs. One recruiter in the data actually jokes, "Should I advise candidates to add a spelling mistake to their resume just to prove an AI didn't write it?"
Think about the irony. We spent the last 20 years drilling into college students that they must aggressively proofread their resumes, that a single typo would ruin their chances. And now, a slight natural grammatical imperfection is almost viewed as a cryptographic signature of human authenticity.
But the actionable takeaway here isn't to intentionally misspell JavaScript. It's about injecting profound, personal, human impact statements into your writing.
Do not just list a sterile series of technical functions. Explain the context. Explain why a specific task mattered to the overarching business, the interpersonal friction you had to overcome with a difficult stakeholder to get the code deployed, or the nuanced, unexpected result you achieved.
If your resume reads like a sterile, robotic list of capabilities, the AI filter will assume it is generated slop and quietly reject it.
This brings us to the final, and perhaps most philosophical, piece of the puzzle. We have zoomed in on the specific roles, the technical architectures, the practical tactics to bypass the filters. Now we need to zoom all the way out.
Because to sustain this career trajectory through 2026 and into the 2030s, you need more than just a list of technical skills. Technologies change. You need to cultivate a very specific kind of professional identity.
We are entering what sociologists and economic researchers are calling the human epoch.
The human epoch. It sounds like the title of a sci-fi novel, but it's our current economic reality. What are the actual mechanics of this epoch?
In an age where raw cognitive labor, the ability to process data, write boilerplate code, or generate standard reports, is entirely commoditized by AI, your professional value is no longer defined by your raw processing power.
You cannot outcompute the machine.
Therefore, your premium value relies entirely on cultivating the 5 fundamental abilities that AI fundamentally, mechanically lacks.
Empathy, presence and ethics, creativity, hope and leadership, and the ability to be a polymath. Let's break those down, starting with empathy and presence, because they sound like soft skills, but they have hard financial returns.
Imagine 2 strategy consultants. Both can use an advanced AI model to generate a brilliant, statistically flawless 50-page strategy report. But only one of those consultants can walk into a tense corporate boardroom, read the subtle, closed-off body language of a nervous CEO, intuitively understand the unstated political hesitations of the executive team, and pivot the tone of the presentation in real time to build emotional trust.
AI can generate the text, but AI cannot read the room. Presence is the ultimate premium service.
And ethics and judgment. An AI model will confidently give you a definitive answer based on statistical probability and its training data. But what happens when the data sets conflict? Or what happens when the mathematically optimal technical solution creates a massive, devastating ethical dilemma or a catastrophic public relations risk for the company?
You need a human being to step in, absorb the nuance, and make the difficult judgment call.
Then you have leadership and hope. An AI agent can perfectly manage a sprint schedule. It can assign JIRA tickets and track velocity, but an AI cannot sit down with a deeply burned-out engineering team on a Friday night and inspire them to push through a grueling, unexpected database migration. It cannot generate shared human hope or foster camaraderie.
And finally, the polymath piece. This is my favorite concept. The idea is that the Industrial Revolution forced us to hyper-specialize. It forced us to be one tiny, highly efficient cog in a massive corporate machine.
Yeah.
You were just the database guy or just the front-end person, but AI tools now allow us to be Da Vinci again.
Exactly. Think about the mechanics of it. You can have a brilliant marketing strategist who previously couldn't write a line of code, but who now uses AI to build and deploy complex Python data scrapers to analyze consumer sentiment.
You have a floor nurse who uses their deep domain expertise in patient care to inform the Kubernetes architecture for a new health tech startup.
When you combine deep, specialized domain expertise with broad AI fluency, you begin to connect dots across entirely different fields. A narrow AI model cannot synthesize insights across wildly disparate human experiences. Only a polymath can.
But here is the critical flaw in simply possessing these traits. If you are a brilliant polymath with deep empathy and S-tier technical skills, but you are sitting quietly in your home office and nobody in the industry knows you exist, you are still stuck. How do you project that identity out into the world?
That is where intentional personal branding becomes a critical survival mechanism, but the window to build it easily is rapidly closing. The source material used a brilliant, terrifying analogy to explain this: the airport fog.
Let's expand on the mechanics of this fog. Picture a massive international airport. A dense, impenetrable fog has rolled in off the ocean. You literally cannot see the runway from the control tower.
If your plane is sitting on the tarmac when that fog rolls in, air traffic control will ground you. You cannot take off. But if your plane is already up in the air flying at 30,000 feet, you can keep flying right above the clouds.
In this analogy, the fog is the infinite, paralyzing deluge of zero-cost, AI-generated content that is currently flooding the internet. Millions of AI-generated blogs, automated LinkedIn thought leadership posts, and synthetic YouTube videos.
The internet is being choked by infinite supply. It is becoming mathematically impossible to stand out from scratch using basic content.
Right, but if you already have an established personal brand, if you put in the work and your plane is already in the air, you have a massive, unassailable advantage.
The fog doesn't affect you because you are operating above it. And to be clear, you do not need millions of followers. You don't need to be a global influencer. You just need a dedicated niche following of 2,000 to 20,000 people who have a genuine parasocial relationship with you.
They know your voice, they trust your specific technical judgment, and they are emotionally invested in your career journey.
So what are the practical steps to get our plane off the tarmac before the AI fog becomes completely impenetrable?
First, you have to claim your digital real estate immediately. Buy a domain name, a .com, or maybe a .online domain, which is universally recognized and has much higher availability for your specific name. Create a centralized hub for your portfolio and your thoughts that is entirely under your control, not subject to the whims of a social media algorithm change.
And then you document the messy reality of your journey. You do not have to posture as an omniscient tech guru. You just post your raw experiments. Post the case studies of what you are building with those S-tier certs.
Talk about the $1 revenue LLC you built and the bugs you couldn't figure out for 3 days. Host physical meetups in your city to build unfakeable in-person connections. Show your human epoch traits.
People crave high-signal authenticity, and they follow humans, not perfectly polished synthetic AI avatars. Build that highly opinionated audience now, because in a few years, breaking through the noise of infinite AI thought leadership will be practically impossible.
This has been an incredibly dense, expansive journey. Let's synthesize everything we've unpacked. The tech job market is not shrinking. It is aggressively demanding that you evolve. The shallow, repetitive, algorithmic jobs are dead. You, the listener, now have the strategic roadmap. You know to target the deep, highly complex roles: cloud security, solutions architecture, AI infrastructure, and GRC.
You know the mechanics of why Kubernetes is creating massive technical moats, and how pivoting into GovTech or securing a clearance can completely insulate you from macroeconomic volatility.
To avoid the trap of theoretical, multiple-choice certifications, and to invest your time only in hands-on, sandbox-verified crucibles like the OSCP or the CCAD.
And you possess the Outliers playbook to bypass the broken ATS systems. Identify and solve real business friction, leverage the psychology of second-order networking, build real LLCs that generate actual revenue, and cultivate a deeply human personal brand that elevates you above the zero-cost AI content fog.
We started this deep dive looking at those two elevators in the corporate lobby: the massive crowd being laid off and the small, highly compensated group ascending to incredible new heights. The separator between those two groups isn't pedigree or inherent genius. The separator is adaptation.
And adapting requires a fundamental shift in perspective. We've spent this entire hour detailing the new technologies you need to master. But perhaps the most profound shift isn't about what you will learn next, but rather what happens to the entire structure of the corporate world once these tools reach their logical extreme.
Consider this. As AI agents become capable of handling entire departments' worth of operational execution, marketing, deployment, QA testing, what happens to the traditional megacorporation?
We are rapidly approaching a moment where we will see the first billion-dollar valuation company operated by a total staff of just 3 human polymaths directing an army of AI agents. When the barrier to executing an enterprise-scale idea drops to near zero, the premium is no longer on the size of your workforce. The premium is entirely on the audacity of your vision and your courage to execute it.
So, as you close out this deep dive, don't just ask yourself how you fit into the current job market. Ask yourself what you could build if you stopped acting like an employee and started acting like the architect of your own automated empire.